It's oh so explicit.
Yup. Today we're going over The Last of Us Part 2, a game I was stoked to get and stoked to play. Here we go. The Last of Us Part 2 is a continuation of Joel and Ellie's life in the post-apocalyptic world of zombies known as the Infected. 4 years after the events of Part 1, the story begins with the broken relationship between Ellie and Joel after Ellie learns the truth about what happened in Part 1's endgame. After trekking half the country, weaving between the infected, hunters, and fireflies, and leaving mounds of corpses in their wake, Joel refuses to sacrifice Ellie even for the sake of all humanity. To protect her, he tells her that their mission was a bust and that the fireflies couldn't find a cure. The truth and Joel's lying devastates Ellie. Now, Joel's decision in the last game not only jeopardizes humanity, but it also deals a crushing blow to Abby, a key character of Part 2. Abby's father was the surgeon who was to extract mutated virus samples from Ellie's brain and as a result, kill her to save mankind. Joel did not let this happen. Abby's father becomes another casualty in Joel's mission to bring Ellie back home to Jackson. After the events at St. Mary's Hospital, the Fireflies disband and branch out into different factions throughout the country. Abby joins the Washington Liberation Front, whose members are known as Wolves. However, she's fixated on revenge. During her time as a wolf, she prioritizes training to prepare for the moment Providence appears. When it does, Abby, along with those who are presumably her closest wolf comrades, make the voyage to Jackson to avenge Abby's dad and their fallen fireflies. Fast forward to the search, and after a lover's spat, and due to high-strung emotions, Abby finds herself alone and overrun by infected until she gets rescued by her target, Joel, and his ride-or-die brother, Tommy. After the rescue, Abby leads the brothers to her temporary wolf base, where the tension is palpable when the group finds out that the brothers who just strolled in were the very people they had marked for death. Back in Jackson, now a full-fledged town with routine scouting patrols, the recon team gets worried that Tommy and Joel failed to check in. This causes Ellie to go out in search of them. She arrives at the wolf station just in time to see Joel take his last breath as she witnesses Abby bash his head in with a golf club. After some Jackson scouts find Ellie and Tommy and bring them home, Ellie decides that revenge must be exacted, and she and her maybe girlfriend Dina take off in search of Joel's killers, resulting in the masterpiece of a story that is Part 2. Since I want to avoid spoilers, let's jump to the gameplay. It's fuego, guys. If you played Part 1, you should easily remember the controls, and it's intuitive enough if this is your first go around. But if it is, do yourself a favor and get Part 1 before you do anything else. Okay, so although the game reads as a stealth and survival game, it's undeniable that while playing, your heart isn't the only thing that's fast paced. Movement in Part 2 got a tremendous upgrade, and your characters are noticeably more agile and quicker with their crafting. The game operates around using available resources to traverse through hostile territory. It's imperative to make the most of everything you have because who knows when you can restock, and that is especially true as you play on higher difficulties. Even though the characters can engage in close quarters combat with an all-new dodge element, violent enemies ensure that this is a last resort. Be prepared to decide whether to make heals or bombs when approaching enemy lines, or to use a bottle as a weapon or a distraction when complete stealth is out of the question. In addition to the NPC that gets your palms sweaty, there are the keen eye puzzles true to a Naughty Dog title. New mobility methods mean that there are different ways to get around, and the game does well in letting you explore your options. Speaking of options, not only do you have the option of gameplay styles such as slow and sneaky or flight and fight, but you also have the option of exploring to help you develop your character to the whims of your preference. The character you play has unlockable abilities that will help you progress with whatever you deem most essential. But be careful, because you will probably not unlock everything in your first playthrough, so your choice does matter, and I think that's great. and lets everyone experience the same game in their own way. This lengthy game takes place across only 3 areas: Jackson, Wyoming, which is where Joel and Ellie live; Washington, Seattle, maybe, in which most of the game takes place; and Santa Barbara, California. Each area stands as its distinct biome and plays differently because of the terrain. There are woods of blanketed snow, overgrown cities, ravaged cities under endless downpour, turbulent rivers, and violent oceans. Every area feels like uncharted territory and depicts the effects of nature taking its course. The developers seem to take painstaking attention to detail because everything looks natural, and it's always nice to see things like dead bodies fall limp after looking at them. Be ready for a decent number of jump scares. The arrow. That first arrow. Bro. Anyway, the graphics are amazing. The spores and the infected are absolutely disgusting to look at, and the characters seem more than video game characters. The absolute greatest thing in this game, in my opinion, is the face mapping the developers pulled off. I mean, wow. Of course, Ellie and Abby have the most descriptive faces in the game, but man, oh man, are their expressions clear to read. The panicked jump of the eyes, raised or frowning eyebrows, even casual gestures like the rub of the neck or the biting of a lip. I mean, some cutscenes were so vivid, I almost stopped paying attention to the story and was caught up in the realism. Even in regular gameplay, the characters' faces clearly gave away their emotional state. My favorite was when usually hulking mad Abby was scared shitless when she was on the Scar Bridge. But no lie, if that would have been me, I would have let Yara die easily. Speaking of dying, I find it hard to believe that you can play through this game without a couple of deaths of your own. Your enemies are smart, and there are a lot of enemies. Each group of enemies has its approach to dealing with you, and deal with you they will. The infected are actually the most pacifistic group, until they see you, that is. They will charge at you in numbers, stunning you and leaving you open to one-shots from clickers, or will do you in from damage. New types of infected will also keep you on your toes, as they move differently from what Part 1 players have become accustomed to. Wolves, Scars, and Rattlers are like the hunters from Part 1, and each with their distinct type of weaponry to try to take you down. They coordinate with each other, working with flanks and last known locations. They even alert others to charge you when they hear the click of an empty magazine. Let us not forget the dogs. Now, I like dogs. I have dogs, but these fucking dogs, they can die. You try to be all sneaky and go Splinter Cell on these guys till a dog picks up your scent and lead the bad guys right to you. Imagine trying to plan your next route in one direction and someone following your every path from behind. It's like playing with a timer where if you take too long to move and the dog catches up with you, your stealth phase is over and you're forced to take action. I shoot these literal sons of bitches on sight. You will definitely want to replay this game more than once. There's just so much freedom in this game, you're bound to miss a few things, and a second or even third playthrough might still feel like a fresh game. There are different dialogues to go through and tons of notes from those who didn't survive. You could level up in different ways and try to go about the game differently. I don't know if there'll be any DLC or extra lore for the game, but as a standalone, it deserves its encore. To be honest, during my playthrough, I was so hungry for the story, I may have skipped a lot myself. But knowing what happens, you may find yourself more into the game than the story. And The Last of Us Part 2 is a great game. On a personal note, I think the game is both a winner in both mechanics and narrative. Many people could be upset about the outcomes of this game, but that's why I think it's great. There were many unexpected twists, and it plays just as chaotic as life can be. In a world where there are undead and survivors that live in a dog-eat-dog world, it's hard to expect rainbows and sunshine. When it comes to the stories of the playable characters, it's almost hard to define them as protagonists or antagonists. I think both Ellie and Abby are basically the same character, driven by revenge. I know we may love to hate Abby for what she did to our beloved Joel, but really, she was hit first. At think the game tries to get us to sympathize with her as we see her flashbacks, but we mostly definitely put up a wall after Joel's death. Both characters go to extreme lengths to get even, and they both go through their peaks and valleys while doing so. They both lose their love interests and friends, all for the sake of revenge. The ending is really one I feel for Abby, not because of what she's gone through, but because of where she was going. She regained her faith in the Fireflies and was looking hopeful for a change. By the time she encounters Ellie for the last time, she's completely dilapidated and a shadow of her former self. That's what hurts. That and Ellie's fingers. Damn. The song is not so sad when you can't play it right. Now, for a survival game, I found the game to be less about survival, but more about lesbians, dads, flashbacks, and pregnant women, and Asians. It's great that they're being inclusive of marginalized communities, but the themes seemed a little force-fed. It doesn't take away from the game at all, but it was too pronounced to be as laissez-faire as it could and should have been. All in all, this is an excellent title that anyone would enjoy. I loved it, even though I have a genuine fear of zombies, which are really just meatbag killing robots with faces of your friends and loved ones. Great story, gameplay, soundtrack, graphics, great everything. This game is definitely winning some awards, and I'd give it 5 stars. It's been oExplicitGaming on The Last of Us Part 2. If you agree or disagree, let me know with the like or dislike buttons, and be sure to leave a comment about the greatest and worst things about this game. My socials are in the description below, and I'd like to hear from you guys. Thanks for watching. Game on.
Oh shit! God damn! Oh, yo.